Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother asarimhotep with the Madhu Mandela Institute for the Advancement of Science and Culture. And this is the Mbongi. And today is Sunday, October the 18th. And we have a very special interview for Black Science Month. We have with us Dr. Sydeaka Watson, who's a data scientist and statistician. We'll find out more about her life and what her job entails and the processes for becoming a mathematician, a data scientist, and a statistician. So all that and more when we return in just a moment. Welcome, everyone. Again, like to thank you for tuning in to the Mbongi, the online learning center and institute where we exchange valuable information that concerns the lives of Black and African people worldwide. And as mentioned earlier and in previous programs, October is Black Science Month. And during Black Science Month, really all year round, not only do we like to promote the sciences in general, but we specifically like to highlight Black scientists in hopes that, we would encourage many of you who may have an interest or liking to science to look into these fields and possibly, get educated in them, either, for your own leisure or maybe even to consider a career. And even, probably to get some information even for your young ones, and possibly steer them into the sciences. And so, today, as mentioned previously, we'll be interviewing Dr. Sydeaka Watson, and she will tell us a little bit more about what she does. But before I do that, I want to also mention that she is a co-founder of Black Science Month. And we will have another co-founder of Black Science Month who's a mathematician and teacher out of New Orleans, but currently living in Houston, Texas, I believe still. Leon Hall will be interviewing him this Saturday. And so I will give more information about that later on in the week. We're still solidifying the time. But the following week, I believe it is on the 29th, we will have Dr. Wade Nobles, who is a psychologist, clinical psychologist, one of the founders of, Black psychology as a discipline, as well as the organization for Black psychologists. And, we've had him on the show previously. I think the last time was actually about 5 years ago. And so, a lot has happened within that. So we want to find out what's going on, of course, with him, his family, life, but more so in terms of, his insights into current conditions, as well as any upcoming works that he may have in the pipeline. So that is going to be a very exciting show. And as always, We like to thank all of our Patreon subscribers. And if you did not know, I do have a Patreon page. So if you want to continue to support this channel, please consider joining one of the tiers on my Patreon page, which is patreon.com, asarimhotep, /asarimhotep. And it serves two purposes. One is to of course, support this channel, but two is to support the upcoming documentary film titled Chiena Into, which is a Chiluba Bantu word for, or phrase for, the Into family. And in that documentary, at least part one, we'll be discussing the relationship between, ancient Egyptian religion, philosophy, culture, language, with modern Bantu speaking cultures in Central, Eastern, and Southern Africa. And so there's a lot to tell, and we want to make sure that this is done right. And so your contributions will help go a long way for helping us realize this vision and seeing this coming to fruition. So with that said, I want to introduce to the program Dr. Sydeaka Watson. How are you today?
Hi, doing great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I am well. I am well.
Good.
And, thank you again for, reserving some moments in your busy day and schedule that you could be relaxing, because it is a Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
to chop it up with, this audience here, not only in terms of my normal audience, but we are also simultaneously broadcasting on the new Black Science Month YouTube channel. So I would suggest everyone that is listening live on my uh, YouTube page as well as my Facebook page to go over to Black Science Month, the YouTube page, and subscribe to that as well, because there will be certain content that will be exclusive to the Black Science Month page. So, and we also have a Facebook page as well that's been up for a number of years. And so, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to the ones who are listening live and decided to enter the chat and make themselves known. So peace and blessings to Althea, Lasha, Donnie Williams, Shaka Plus, Infinite Minds, Thought Evoker, Michael Irvin, and Afro Asiatic, and anyone on Facebook who's there that I cannot see at the moment. But thank you all for making yourselves known in the chat, and all of you, of course, who are catching the archive.
Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know you, I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a number of years, in a different capacity, in a different scene, but the so we had to discover this other brilliant mind, saying, of yours in this capacity. So, can you tell us, where you're from, what motivated you, got you interested, in mathematics and data science and statistics and the like, and what do you do currently?
Okay. Yep. I can start off by telling you where I'm from. So I grew up in New Orleans. I should add that I grew up on the West Bank of New Orleans, which is very important for people from New Orleans. But I grew up in Algiers, and I always love math. Was always just kind of my favorite subject. It was the one that I just excelled in more than any others. And as I started to become better and better, as I started to advance in mathematics, I'm looking around in my high school and I'm seeing that the people who enjoyed math or who were good at math were my math teachers. And so, without without any other tangible evidence of what I could be. I think I just sort of said, okay, well, that's a path for me. There was always this poster on the board or in the classroom that said, here are all the different things you can do if you study math. You can be an astronaut, you can be an engineer, you can be, all these different things. But I didn't know any astronauts, so I didn't know any of the paths. And so I started out my journey thinking, okay, well, I'll probably go into education. I'll be a math major and I'll go into education. Shout out to all my educators out there. I know you guys are doing all the hard work right now. But when I went to Dillard for my first year of undergrad, and the summer before I started, I was accepted into a summer bridge program where they just kind of introduce you to some topics ahead of time. And that was where I was introduced to the concept of math research. I was paired with a mentor. He gave me a project to do, and we worked together and we presented our findings. And math was one of those things where I thought, math is already figured out. What are y'all researching? 1+1 is 2. It's already done. What is there to research in math? But they helped me realize, no, you could actually be a professor and get a research program together and kind of have that as your thing to do. So I decided to do that because that was something that was presented to me. And then eventually, I got a bachelor's in math, went on to get a master's degree in math as well. And along the way, as I was getting my PhD, I ended up switching into statistics. But as I was getting a PhD, while I was in the middle of that, I got introduced to the concept of being a practicing statistician. So actually being embedded in some sort of a research team where there's some research questions and we're doing this tests and, we're actually using it to help drive medical innovations. And so I said, well, maybe I shouldn't be a professor. Maybe I should just be, a biostatistician, So all these different types of pivots came about because I saw something different. I had some sort of framework of what my possibilities were in the world and what my options were, and I just sort of said, okay, I'm going to go with that, and then I learned something new. So that's where there were just those numerous, moments that led me to different directions. And eventually, so I did work as a biostatistician. I did that for about 5 years. I worked at the University of Chicago and designed clinical studies, did a lot of data analyses, helped researchers promote therapies or study therapies or treatments and so on. And then I heard about this thing called data science, which everybody kept talking about as this emerging field that they just couldn't put enough people into it because there's just so much work to be doing and having to bring people in from different countries because they just don't have enough people in the United States to fill with that skill set to fill all the jobs that are available. So if you have any sort of a math background or technical background, jump into data science. That's what I kept hearing. So, and they're paying, oh, by the way, they're paying you a lot of money, So I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me see if I can try that. And so I pivoted and decided my first job was at AT&T. My first data science job was at AT&T. So that was a big jump. And I helped them to understand their customers and build all kinds of mathematical models that help them predict which kinds of customers were going to do certain kinds of things so that they can, just kind of decide how to manage their relationship with the customer better based on those insights. And then started my own consulting practice, worked for a consulting firm, like right now, day job, working at a pharmaceutical company. But right now, I do have my consulting Corlossi Data Insights, my own consulting group that was a group of one. But I use that primarily to work on research projects. Most of them are social good projects like studying, and we can get into that a little bit more as well, but studying some things that are of interest to myself as a woman, as a person in the Black community, just different types of ways that we can make our society, our Black society, our Black experience better. And also just kind of working on some projects that are just fun and interesting projects, doing some deep learning, artificial intelligence, AI, computer vision stuff. Yeah, so that's where I am now.
Excellent. And it's ironic, on one hand, that everyone that is involved with the creation of Black Science Month have New Orleans ties.
Is it a coincidence?
you know, and then secondly, for someone like myself who is grown up in the hood, one of the things that, we always say is that we don't want to be a statistic. But
Mm.
then here you come, go get a whole degree in statistics. Like, not only do I want to be a statistic, I want to calculate the statistics, the stats. Uh, so that's interesting, in of itself.
People ask me that all the time, like,
So,
why in the world would you study statistics? Like, that's what everybody else runs away from. Why would you study math? Why would you study statistics? Which is, among the, the more difficult times of math to study. Um, and why would you choose that as a career? And I don't know. It's interesting, and to be honest, because there's so many people that are not wanting to do it, right? That I could just say, hey, pay me to do it. I can.
yeah,
I'm happy to.
that's what people don't realize. It's the most difficult things to learn is the highest paying gigs out there. The less people can do it, the more valuable you are.
Yeah.
And and this is something that I tell young people all the time. Like, where is everyone running to? Where is not that many people running to? Look in
Mm-hmm.
that direction, and don't be afraid. So a lot of people believe that math is difficult, and we have neurobiological evolutionary explanations for this because of the way that we've evolved. We didn't necessarily evolve to comprehend higher maths, like calculus, trig, uh, things of this nature. It's a skill set that has to be, we have to exercise. It's just like we don't wake up feeling like we have to exercise and go to the gym every day, and we dread that. A lot of us dread, doing math. Matter of fact, this computer is sitting on a big thick math book, as we speak.
Hmm.
But so how do we get over this hump?
Hmm.
For a lot of us, one, who believe that math and science is something that white people do, and two, that it is necessarily hard.
Hmm.
What aren't we grasping as young people, when we're learning math, what aren't we comprehending about it that would make it easier for us to comprehend? And I guess I would add, what is it about the teachers and the teaching methods of math that may turn young folk away?
So that's probably a really good question for Leon's. So I'm sure he'll probably
uh
have a lot of insight as a math teacher. And I've taught math at the university level
yeah,
for many years, so I can speak on that part of it. So, but I can't speak about teaching kids as much.
all right.
I will say that if you fast forward ahead to a student who has just finished high school and they're looking at their different options for college majors, and they're reflecting on their experiences that they've had in high school or at the elementary level, especially if they've gone to a school that has not been funded properly, the teachers have not been given the time and the resources necessary in order to really prepare them, they're not going to have a positive view of math anyway. And so if you say, okay, I want to be pre-med. Ooh, there's a lot of math in that. Oh, maybe not, right? So I'm just going to navigate away from the different kinds of math courses. Then that has an impact, right? That has an impact on how many of our people end up going into those fields. So I think a bigger, just as you mentioned, it does have to start fairly early, where students have to be given high quality education, where they're appropriately introduced to those kinds of math, STEM topics in general, in a way that they can actually grasp it, bring it into the next grade, and then fully grasp those concepts and so on, and it all builds up. And some of that can be done in the general curriculum, and then some of that could be supplemented. Like I know that there are a number of programs that are emerging that are these sort of coding camps, or robotics camps, or I know in New Orleans, shout out to Calvin Mackey with his STEM NOLA program, which is actually going international, I believe, where they're just kind of bringing kids together and saying, okay, here's, forget about this textbook and learning these terms and so on. Let's just get into a project on that gets you excited about what science is and some of the cool things you can do in science, so that you can want to put forth the effort. Wow, I think this is really cool. I want to be a robotics engineer when I grow up. Okay, what can I do? Okay, where am I lacking, and how can I, um, how can I be supported so that I can get pushed into that field? So yeah, I definitely think the key to that is going to be linked to education for sure.
I think that is a very crucial point. And in my analysis, it is the project based learning that I think is most effective. And so, I'm pretty sure in high school, you've heard students say, well, what am I going to need this for, you know, later on in life? Like, what is the purpose of this? And we, I've said that, before, until I started programming, you know, and this is when I was an accounting major at Southwest Texas State University. But this is when I picked up, doing programming, and I wanted to do all the cool. This is when Macromedia was a company before Adobe bought the Flash program,
Hmm.
and so there was, like it was a culture and a thing to create Flash animations, but to do the really, really, really cool stuff, that like to make your whole screen slide, and
Mm-hmm.
it stop and bounce, like
Mm-hmm.
in a real person, and had all these yummy, like you had to know physics and you had to know math.
Hmm.
And so if I would have had those programs, in high school, and was saying like, hey, these are the kinds of projects that you can do, this is how you would calculate, and get to this and experiment with these formulas and see what happens. Like that would have given me motivation, because I can see what could be done when you actually apply that stuff. And so it really became, when I started going back to school for computer science, that's all we do is math, and so I see the practical applications. But then of course, when you're talking about home loans and other kind of stuff like that, spread of viruses, as you mentioned, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the biology, like all of this stuff becomes very important.
Yeah.
But what were some of the key studying techniques
Hmm.
that you utilized, that you found work best for you, in your journey of studying, maths and statistics in particular?
Yeah, I guess a couple things. One would be um, paying attention in class, because that's usually going to be like in this age of Zoom, where you can just kind of listen to something over, like maybe you have a recording or something like that, and you can listen to the talk over and over or something like that. I mean, I guess it's different, but back in my day, like I had that one shot. Like the teacher is in front of the class and he or she is explaining the material, and so I need to pay attention so that I can get it. And if I'm falling asleep, I'm not paying attention, I'm doodling or whatever, I'm not going to get it. So I'm paying attention in class. That's one thing. The second thing is, there's you know problems that are being worked out. So the teacher's explaining something and saying, okay, does anybody have any questions? And if I have questions, then I'm going to say, I don't get it. I have a question about this. I don't quite understand it. So I try not to be shy about letting people know that I need help.
Mm.
So that could be in the middle of the class, where I'm interrupting the teacher, or that could be if I'm, feeling like, okay, well, I don't feel comfortable asking the question in front of the teacher, then maybe I'll talk to the teacher after class and say, okay, well, maybe is there some way that I can understand this a little differently, or I had a question about something I couldn't ask it in class. So that's
Mm.
one thing. So some of my studying techniques are even just before the studying, right? It's just how do I just focus on grasping the content when it's being presented. Taking good notes. So I try to write things down, things that the teacher wrote on the board, but also my little extra notes that help me to understand, oh, she added this three here because of X, Y, Z, or whatever reason, so that I can refer to that later, so that when I can review it, I can remember my thought process, or some little anecdote that she provided. And then I guess the last thing would be practicing. So there's, especially in the well, I think in any kind of math class that you're taking, there's always going to be a lot of practice problems, right? So you just kind of you work this problem. It might be 10 problems, it might be 100 problems, something like that. But you kind of have to keep working on it over and over again and make sure that you've got it, so that on test day, or when you're ready to take that same kind of concept and apply it in a different scenario, that you feel really strong in that area. So I definitely would encourage you to practice as much as possible.
How important is community in the retention of such information? What I mean is like study groups and finding other people who are uh into the same type of study. Were you, well, I'm assuming that you had like class projects or whatnot that required a group,
Yep.
but are you the kind of person like I have to really kind of be by myself for long periods of time to get things, or do you work better in conversation, saying with others, in your study process?
It depends on, so if it's studying, it kind of depends. Like if it's something that I feel pretty confident about ahead of time, I might not feel like I need to reach out to other people. But I also feel that there's a give and take, right? So sometimes I'm the strongest one in a certain subject, and then other people are leaning on me. But then sometimes I'm leaning on other people because they grasped it better than I did. So I think just sort of continually going, whether you feel good about it or not, or maybe even sometimes you think you feel good about it, you think you understand it, and then you realize when you talk to other people, actually, you know what, actually, you got that right, but you got it right for the wrong reason, and here's what you really
Mhm.
need to be thinking about, right? So you can make sure you get it right in the future. So I think there is definitely some benefit to having a network of people that you can talk to and reach out to, and just so if you've got some people that are in your class, or maybe they've in the same kind of class, maybe they have a different teacher or something like that, but you guys are going through that same class together. Yeah, it definitely helps to have people that you can connect with.
And how important, or I should ask first and foremost, in your educational process and even in your professional career, did you have any people that you would consider formally mentors? And if so, how important were they to your development?
Yeah, yes, I have had numerous mentors in different capacities. So even
Right.
as early as that first program that I mentioned earlier, the summer before I started at Dillard, I was paired with a mentor, and he was a member of the math department. He was in the faculty, and he not only helped me with my research project, but also just sort of was somebody, because he was in the major that I was going to go into. He was just kind of talking to me about different career options and different classes that I might want to take, and just what are my questions, and and trying to help me to navigate through that experience. And that, I think, was critical for me in that particular moment, because it helped, like I said, I mentioned earlier how it reframed my thinking, right? Because it introduced me to this concept of a STEM career that I didn't even know I guess I on a theoretical level, I knew, okay, yeah, there are professors, there are college professors, people who study math, but I didn't know, oh yeah, actually, by the way, they have research programs, and that you can actually build a career out of that, and
Mhm.
so having somebody like that in a formal capacity who is paired with me so that he can give me some guidance, that was really, really helpful. So I've had numerous mentors in programs that I had signed up for where I said, okay, I really need a mentor. And then there were some other ways where I just sort of found people along the way that had advanced in ways that I was trying to advance. And I just wanted to connect with them to find out if there's some ways that I could learn from what they, maybe I don't have to make, so there's certain mistakes maybe that they made, and they can
Mhm.
pass along, some of that knowledge to me, or maybe they have access to, some programs that I don't know about because they have a stronger network, and they might know about this conference or this scholarship or something like that. Um, so some of the and some of them are really just about giving me advice, right? So I'm trying to decide between this job or this other job. I have some reservations about something. Can you just kind of talk this through? And the decision of what to do is ultimately mine, but it just kind of helps to have somebody else, an external person, somebody that I can trust, who is experienced and who can give me some good advice. So those have been helpful. And because of how important mentorship has been in my journey, I've taken it upon myself to be involved in some mentoring programs as a mentor. So I've signed up with there's a statistics conference, joint statistical meetings. They have a diversity mentoring program that I helped organize, and also served as a mentor in that program for many years. I'm working in the United Negro College Fund STEM Scholars program as a mentor. And then I have random people reach out to me on LinkedIn, just
Mhm.
that I don't even know. And they just say, hey, your background sounds interesting and it's in line with what I want to do. And I have some questions. You mind if we just kind of meet, and talk some things through? And that happens all the time. And, pretty much 100% of the time I say, yes, sure. Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't mind talking to you. So, um, yeah, but it is definitely important. So I would encourage you, if there's some sort of structured program you can get into, where somebody's saying, "Hey, do you want to be paired with somebody who can mentor you and help you through this journey of navigating through this STEM career?" Absolutely, I would highly recommend that. But I also encourage you to, if you don't have that opportunity, to just sort of seek people out, people who maybe are in your department or in your field or something like that. You met them at a conference, you met them at a meetup event or something, or they spoke at a webinar, and you want to just reach out to them online and ask, hey, is it okay if I just ask you a few questions? I was really impressed with what you said, and I had a lot of questions about it or something. So yeah, however you can connect with the mentor, I think it's very important.
What are some extra skills that you've had to pick up
Hmm.
in order to do the jobs that you have been involved in terms of your careers? So we assume that a statistician and a mathematician is just sitting there at a desk with some
Hmm.
paper and then calculating, or have one of those big chalkboards that you would see Einstein with a gang of symbols and circles, you know, trying to calculate the rate of change that a comet is heading towards the Earth and is going to re-kill the dinosaurs. But you know, I assume there's some technologies that you had to learn, some other skill sets. Can you tell us about those, if that applies? That question applies.
Yeah. So I can start by saying that I'm always learning. So
Mm,
there's no, I went to school for 4 years or however long, and then yay, I did it. I know everything I need to know to be successful in my career. That's just 100% false, right? So there's always some new math. There's always some new technology or tool or something like that. There's always some new framework or way of thinking that you need to pick up, because other people in your field are going to be expecting it, or people, you're gonna want to know that for whatever reason. So I'm always, aside from formally, taking courses. I might take a little, boot camp here, or, just take this class or watch this video here. I'm going to different events, different conferences and meetups, just listening to figure out, okay, what is it that it seems like people are, what is the hot ticket item right now that it seems like all the cool kids in data science seem to really be focusing on and using in their work, and is that something I need to be incorporating into my work as well? But some of the things I've had to pick up, especially as it relates to my transition into data science. So remember, I was working as a biostatistician at a time. So I had a PhD in statistics. I had, a very strong foundation in math and statistics. So it was just a matter of figuring out how to get over into data science. And the differences there were that I needed to pick up some programming experience. So I had a little bit of programming experience, just that I had just sort of picked up along the way that I was using in my work, but I needed to really understand at a high level, just sort of how do programmers kind of think? How do you write code? How do you write it well in a way that accomplishes what you want to accomplish in the most efficient way possible, and also so that it's readable, so that other people who are collaborating with you can understand what you're doing, and they can collaborate as well, and they can offer their they can modify it, or understand it or use it in their work or whatever. So just understanding just general coding principles, I think that was a really important one. For the most part, I was using R, the R programming language, because I thought of it more as a statistical software, but it's also a programming language that can be used for so many other purposes. So I started with R, but I started branching out into Python. Python is another programming language that a lot of data scientists use as well. So having some strong background in programming is one thing. And then there's this thing called big data technologies. I'm sure you probably heard that buzzword. Like, there's this concept that there's all this data out there, and if we put it all together and extract some insights from it, then that can help us to really improve our businesses, or sell more whatever items we're selling in our business or whatever. But that having really large data, like for example, when I worked for AT&T, of course, AT&T is all big data, like really, really big data. Actually, that was the name of the organization I worked at, was AT&T Big Data. And so doing very simple things that you could very easily do on your laptop, if you just had a data set and it was just in a file, and you can't do that, right? You have to use very special software to leave the data where it is and just run something against it that gives you the answers that you need, or does the analysis that you need. So studying big data, that was also really, really important for me. And then also machine learning. So that wasn't something I had to learn in statistics, but there's this other whole class of modeling called machine learning, and then eventually deep learning, that are using some of those, like the self-driving cars and all that. They're using all this deep learning technology. That's something I've had to pick up on my own, just watching tutorials and working on projects on my own that help me to really understand the concepts a little bit better when I apply it for some kind of working project. So yeah, those are some of the things I had to pick up.
So basically, you're involved in the team that analyzes the chip that was sent from the future.
Oh.
That created the Terminators.
Okay, is this a secure line? I don't know if we're. I don't think we should talk about that.
What was the company in that film? In the Terminator 2.
I don't remember. That's my official. I don't remember.
Somebody in the chat can remind me. But it when you're getting into machine learning and big data, the other genre in that family is artificial intelligence. And so have you done any work or insights or had any curiosities into artificial intelligence?
Yeah, that's the buzzword. That's what everybody, all the cool kids are wanting to make sure they have artificial intelligence in their background, and they got some artificial intelligence projects. So I had to be one of the cool kids. And I think I'm saying that, kind of in a joking sense, but I'm also thinking about, I'm always looking at how can I continuously make sure that my skill set and my experiences are marketable. Like for whatever next opportunity, whatever next job, if I want to work on another project or whatever, I want them to look at the stuff that I'm doing and say, she is at the cutting edge. She is capable of doing the kinds of things that we need to do going forward, you know, as we build out whatever business or project we're working on. So yeah, so I definitely wanted to make sure that I was involved in that kind of research. So I did take a class. Udacity has Udacity is just the name of this educational technology educational services platform online. And I just took some free classes in machine learning when I was trying to prepare for a data science career. But eventually, my company, the company I was working for at the time, they ended up paying for me to enroll in the nano degree, the deep learning nano degree program that gives you a background, they give you kind of enough information about what you need to learn. But again, I'm one of those people, I have to do it myself. I can't just, okay, here's the textbook definition of it and here's your toy example. I need to actually have a project where I'm in the middle of it and I need to figure it out. And so I decided that I wanted to do a computer vision project. Computer vision is where the computer is seeing something, like, right, like I show you a picture of, some outdoor view, and you can, as a person looking at the picture, you can say, that's a tree, that's a boy, that's a soccer ball, that's grass, you know what I mean? Like that's a little house or whatever, you can see that with your eyes. But can the computer, can you give this kind of image to a computer and have the computer label all those different things in the image, right? So that's what computer vision is all about. And that could be still images or that could be video, right? Video is just one picture after another. So can you have some sort of a algorithm that can continuously pick up what's in an image or what's in the frames in a video? So that's something, that was what my first AI kind of project, right? So it's taking something that a human can do, like look at a picture and see what it is and identify what's going on, and trying to get an algorithm to do that kind of thing. So that's what I started working on. And I created a project out of nowhere. And I have some video results of that actually that I could share with you maybe at some point. But it's really I thought it was really cool and really rewarding for me. And because of that, I was able to share the findings and so what I was able to do. And then other people have confidence in my ability. Like she says she knows how to do this AI stuff. She's shown me that she can do it, so I can trust her with it and I can give her some projects. And so yeah, that's been great for me.
Excellent. And yes, the company was Skynet.
Oh.
And Terminator 2. So she officially works for Skynet, and we're bringing in the Terminators. And speaking of Terminators, they never really addressed the grandfather paradox, in that. And I just thought about that the other day. I know it's random and off topic, but since I mentioned it, that's going to be a subject for a future show.
Mm-hmm.
The grandfather paradox in film, and how can we create a film that addresses that, which defeats the grandfather time travel paradox. But I saw a question earlier, and I want to get to it before. Hold on. I think this is it. Thought Evoker asks, what are the major areas of data statistics have you specialized in? What areas of medicine, specifically health conditions? Anything linguistic related?
Okay, so the major areas of data and statistics that I've specialized in. So on the statistics side, I've primarily focused on biostatistics. So that's things related to designing a study, right? So how many people need to go into the study? What is the research question that the doctors are wanting to answer, and how do you translate into something that is testable, that is related to some specific types of things that we can measure and do some kind of analysis on? And so a lot of those kinds of frameworks have been ones that I focused on. But So that's one piece of it. Another area has been, I mentioned that, I've been leaning more toward this deep learning AI space, just trying to come up with some projects that I've worked on and that I've worked on with individual companies to support that. And I mentioned that the computer vision is an example. Um, and then a third area it's officially called data science for social good, which is where, yeah, you can use this company to help, you know, T-Mobile sell more phones, or McDonald's sell more burgers, or whatever, right? Like these
Mhm.
technologies can be used for that, but can we do something that helps people, right? Like help people who are struggling with different things. So there's this group, for example, called Data for Black Lives, which is, as you can imagine, sort of somewhat at least marginally related to the Black Lives Matter movement. But um, their focus is on from a data perspective, right? Like, how can we understand the Black experience? How can we understand some disparities as they relate to, social justice issues, et cetera, policing as they relate to COVID? That's the project that I'm working on with them right now. Some disparities in COVID-19 cases and outcomes for Black community compared to other groups. Um, how can we, study differences in police, our interactions with the police compared to other groups? How can we do it from a data perspective? It's one thing to say it's not fair, that they're doing XYZ, right? But it's another thing to put numbers, right? And to actually to put the numbers and put them in front of people who need to see them, right, from a numbers perspective, and then actually put them out in a way that says, okay, here's what we found and here's what we recommend, right, based on what we found. So that's another area that I've been focusing on. What areas of medicine, which health conditions. That I was just kind of a general purpose biostatistician. So anybody who had a sleep study, cancer, um, like diabetes, heart, any kind of condition. I think so. I would just sort of, I don't have all the expertise to really understand all those different health conditions, but I know enough. I learn enough about it so that I can help them design the study they need or help them do whatever analysis they need. So I didn't specialize in any. And then the last thing would be linguistic related. Not exactly. I haven't done any linguistics projects. I guess the closest I could come to that would be to say I've done some text analytics. So there was a COVID study that I was involved in. It was a survey where the question was asked to all these respondents in a community: what are some of the things that you're struggling with right now, or that you think you'll be struggling with it as it relates to this COVID pandemic? And the responses came in as just free text, right? Just paragraphs. Each person had their own paragraphs, and so that's where the people who administered the survey were like, okay, what am I supposed to do with this? All these paragraphs, how can I just extract all the, here's the top 10 things that people were worried about, and how can I present these findings to, whatever elected officials need to know that. So I did some text analytics on that data set and also some others. But linguistics in particular, no, I haven't done anything like that. But thanks for the question.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. And I know most of us aren't, we don't necessarily care about certain statistical, I shouldn't say care, but some of us don't care, haven't been introduced, have no knowledge of certain statistical concepts. But one I think that we should all be familiar with, because it is something that has been used against the African American community, is Bayes' theorem.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a book that I recommend that everyone read, and it doesn't have, it's not about a whole bunch of statistical analysis. It's historical in its presentation, and it is The Theory That Would Not Die: How Bayes' Rule Cracked the Enigma Code, Hunted Down Russian Submarines, and Emerged Triumphant from 2 Centuries of Controversy, by Sharon. McGrain. It came out in 2012. And so the book, again, is The Theory That Would Not Die. If you can remember that,
Hmm.
you can find it on Amazon. And I think that will give people an important introduction on why statistics is very important and how it is used in making decisions, that affect our lives. And even if we don't have a deep understanding of how it is done, we should at least be literate on the processes that are involved and why we should have some knowledge, of it in of itself. So I just wanted to, you reminded me of that text and just Bayes theorem in general.
Yeah,
But
that's actually really interesting because, and I've definitely done a lot of work in Bayesian statistics. My dissertation was Bayesian as well, and I've heard actually this was one of the more interesting examples where somebody was trying to figure out, okay, where would I even use this in real life? And she was talking about how, there's a difference between, like think about it in the criminal justice system, saying, what's the probability that this person committed this crime given the evidence, as opposed to saying, what's the probability of having this evidence given that they committed this crime, right? And so there's those, that's the difference between like the way that we traditionally think about statistics and analyzing data and analyzing evidence and trying to make conclusions from a frequentist versus a Bayesian standpoint. And so yeah, it is definitely used in a lot of different contexts. I've definitely used it quite a bit, or I've definitely seen it used quite a bit in healthcare, but it is used definitely everywhere. So that sounds like, I hadn't heard of that book before, but yeah, definitely sounds interesting.
yes, the main title is The Theory That Would Not Die.
Mhm.
How Bayes' rules cracked the Enigma code, hunted down Russian submarines, and emerged triumphant from 2 centuries of controversy. And yes, that is the entire title of the text. But we had one more question from previously. Did you ever have to contend with a lack of support from your peers? If so, how did you overcome that?
I have to think about that. Lack of support. Um, I guess that could come about in a few different ways. Lack of support could mean I really need, people are expecting certain things of me, or I need certain resources in order to get something done, and I'm just not given the tools that I need. And that could be some technical tools, like you're expecting me to do this, but I don't have the tools to do it. I'm asking you for these things, but you still want me to give you these things that I just can't do without your help with these additional items. So that could be one thing. And then some of it could be in terms of growth, right? In terms of career growth, where you're wanting to grow, or, you aspire to be at a certain level, but you're not getting access to the kinds of people that you need or the kinds of experiences you need so that you can be propelled upward, so that you can. So if they're saying, for example, the people who get this promotion have to have done this kind of project and they have to have this kind of leadership opportunity and so on, and I want that, but you're not allowing me to check off those boxes, then that's a lack of support as well. So yeah, I can definitely say yes. I've had I've had those, and I think I've had to manage those, just sort of as a so there's the general employee aspect of not having the resources that you need in order to do your job effectively, but then sometimes on top of it, yeah, there is definitely, um, you can see that other people get the support that they need, or they're not getting as much pushback whenever they're asked, if they happen to not be a Black female. You can kind of see some of those differences, especially sometimes if the same person, they're going to the same person I went to, and so I definitely have examples of that. So yeah, yes, I have. Unfortunately, yeah, that's sort of. Part of the territory, I guess, as a double minority, but I've learned to be better about advocating for myself, to speak up whenever I see, hey, look, that's not right. I noticed that this is happening. I really need your support, and I simply can't do this without your help, and here's why it's important, and and just kind of continue to press on it, not to be just randomly annoying, but to make sure that you're talking to people you need to talk to, and whether that's talking to somebody else, if it becomes a personal issue where it's that person might seem to have something against you for whatever reason, then you might have to get HR involved or something. But fortunately, it's never come to that. Um, but I think generally, I think because I express myself confidently, that I tend to get people to kind of say, okay, well, it seems like she's not going to let this go. And she seems like she has a really strong opinion. She's able to defend her reasons for wanting this well. So, maybe I'm more inclined to support her in the ways that she's looking for. But yeah, that definitely happens.
All right. Um, I don't know if this is directed at me or our guest. Gideon Appleseed says, "Will it be safe to say code is like hieroglyphs?" I would answer that question that yes, they're really kind of one and the same. Um, and we got to kind of understand the context of this channel. So most people are more familiar with me doing language linguistics, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. So you'll see these kinds of questions pop up randomly. But you know, language is a code, and writing is simply abstract symbols to represent the codes that represent the thoughts in our minds that are expressed through speech. And so, computer code, whether you're talking about Python or R, as she mentioned earlier, um, it's all code. It's all abstractions, expressed through symbols that represent, or at least the formulas represent patterns um, in nature that represent laws in terms or descriptions of processes, in nature. And so, code hieroglyphs are codes themselves. Um, in terms of, I should say, code in the sense that when you're looking at actual written text, the written text itself is a code, but the hieroglyphs themselves are symbols. And so all language are codes. Um,
Hmm.
there was something else actually, and I just got a text. Shout out to Brother Taki of the Hoppy documentary film, in which I am in, by the way. And y'all should go to hoppyfilm.com to find out when they are doing any kind of live screenings or online screenings. And Brother Taki asks, has your career in learning, excuse me, let me rephrase this. How has your career in learning um, impacted your personal life?
Hmm.
Like, I always imagine, like, if two lawyers were dating, what would their arguments be like? Would they be like formal arguments? One of them say, "I object," when the
Yeah.
other person says something. Like, do you how
Okay, I have a response.
go ahead?
It's more of so there's a couple different ways I can respond to that. One would be um, I I think I've definitely been told by people that I have dated in the past that I can be very analytical. And of course, with me having the field, being in the field that I'm in, sometimes it does allow me to just kind of take a step back and look at things objectively, and say, okay, here's just thinking about it from a practical standpoint. Here are the facts, and then here's what our different options are, and then here's where here's what, what I think, what you think, and then, here's sort of a middle. So that's part of what I do in my job. And so sometimes that happens to spill over into my personal life. And so I have been coached on that, and I realize, okay, maybe that's not ideal, because that does ignore, from an emotional perspective. So I definitely, I'm aware of that. I do have that awareness. I think another way it's impacted it is that, and this is going to sound really stupid, but I remember when so without getting into anecdotes and everything, people have a negative perception of women, educated Black women or whatever. Um, and what that means is that no matter who I am or what I actually do or how I actually approach them or how I, whatever it is, there's still that stigma hanging over my head. And so it was fairly early, and I don't do this anymore, but before, if I was interested in somebody, I would not tell them that I have a PhD. I would not tell them I have a PhD in statistics, because that was sort of a game killer, basically. If I was not interested in somebody, then I would tell them, or something like that. But because what happens is that would just sort of turn it off, unless that other person just happened to have a PhD as well. But and what would happen is that people would, or guys would, not all of them, but some of them would sort of think, well, she has that, so she must be this kind of way, or she must need me to make this amount of money, or I must need to have these kinds of educational goals to meet where she is, and I'm not. And I have a different career that I love, but I don't want to be a PhD in statistics or whatever, and that's what she's looking for. So I'm just going to completely stop whatever pursuit of any sort of romantic thing. So so at that time I would sort of navigate the conversation away from that, allow the person to get to know me, and then it will sort of be this big reveal. Oh, by the way, later, I would sort of ease it in after they've had a chance to know me. Now I feel like I'm not doing that anymore. So I've completely given that up. So you're just gonna have to figure it out. If you're at the point where you're feeling like, you have this stigma, or you're gonna allow that to judge how you're going to impact me, then we're probably just not a good fit, and I just need to meet somebody else. So, but yes, it does have an impact. I think people have different expectations of you, not just romantically speaking, but I think just sort of in general in the community. People just sort of look to me. I've noticed that people talk to me differently. I remember right after I got my PhD, people started using like proper English, around me. They stopped using slang around me. So I don't know. People just sort of think of you as not down to earth in the same way that maybe you were before. So yeah, I guess it does, but I don't know. I guess you kind of have to just decide, okay, I'm going to just be myself. I like who I am. I know I'm a good person. I'm self-aware to the point where if there is something about myself that is not allowing me to have the kind of, personal or professional relationships that I want to have, then I can change that about myself. But, bending to other people's insecurities, I can't do that. I can't do that.
Indeed. Have you seen the Netflix film The Social Dilemma?
I have not.
I think you may be interested in that, because for the simple reason that they talk about how, of course, the social impact of social media, on the personal lives of individuals and our human interactions, but more so how they use big data to do a lot of this marketing and things of this nature. So I would think that, you being involved in the field, not necessarily in that capacity to deal with media companies, but I just wanted to get your opinion of that film if you saw it, but you didn't. So
I hadn't seen it. Sorry.
Have to bring you back.
Yeah. Part two.
We do a statistician's movie review of The Social Dilemma.
Oh wow.
But speaking of, I'm not trying to get into your personal life like that, but in the context of course, when you have a job, no matter what it is, and you have a particular you've been on a particular educational trajectory, people think that that's all that you're about, that's what you do and think about, 24 hours a day. But what other interest and hobbies do you have unrelated to the calculations and static stuff? Like what what would you be involved in, or what do you have an interest in that you would like to get involved in, but for some reason at the Skynet company, they just have you working these long hours?
So I well, not so much these days, but I used to be really involved in the poetry scene. Shout out to my New Orleans poetry scene
Mhm.
folks. But I used to do spoken word. I used to perform. I used to even compete in some spoken word competitions sometimes, and win sometimes. So it was really, but it was I think for the most part that was. Um, and I think still is for a lot of people in a lot of ways, even though I'm not as involved in it. It's still like a nice outlet, right? It's, so
Mhm.
there's the mathematics side of me versus just being creative, using a different sort of medium of, here's a different channel where I can express myself and be creative. So that was cool. I like outdoor activities, so I like hiking. Um, Cycling, those kinds of different things. Traveling, which is obviously a challenge right now because of COVID. But I do love
Because
to
COVID is
travel.
hating. All
Yeah.
of 2020 is just hating.
And one of the cool things about, professionally, I would travel for work, and I would go to a conference or I'm visiting a client or something like that, but then I would
Mhm.
turn it into a vacation, right? So,
Yeah.
I'm just spending a few extra days there, seeing the city and so on. So it was just nice to be able to just pop around the country. I mean, and also maybe visit a few other countries, just having different experiences. So that's
Mhm.
definitely one of the other things I enjoy. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question from the comment section, and I'm not sure if we answered this already, but other than Python or statistical software, please list some data science skills which you acquired during your research and PhD. Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, one of the things I had mentioned was, so aside from programming, understanding big data technologies,
Hmm.
and digging into some of the more advanced modeling strategies like machine learning and deep learning. Um, Yeah, I mean that's obviously on a technical side. On the non-technical side, um, there's some soft skills, right? Like just how to interact with people, right? How to manage people. How do you manage your manager? There's different ways to figure out. There's certain things I need to get done, and this person is sort of in the way, and I need to figure out how do I get through that person or around that person in order to accomplish what I want to get done. And then one of the other things is public speaking. So one of the things I was deathly afraid of was just speaking in public, going up in front of a technical audience, especially
Hmm.
where I'm presenting what I found or some work that I did. And there's all these other people who are very knowledgeable. They've studied this area in so many different ways. So they're probably going to ask you this question, well, why didn't you think about this? And there's this other way that, you could have done this or that or the other, or that was wrong. And, you shouldn't have done it that way. And, so there's all these insecurities that pop up in my head where I didn't feel confident getting up in front of all those people and, just sharing and as a general member of the scientific community. So I challenged myself at a certain point to just say, for the next, I don't know, however long, but I said, I'm going to just say yes to every speaking engagement that comes up. And hopefully that makes me better at public speaking. And it did. And it was weird because the more that I did it, the better I got. And the more people said, hey, you should come back. And hey, you should come to this one. And hey, you should come to that one. And eventually I had to say, okay, I can't just say yes to every one of them yet now because there's just too many of them. So,
Hmm.
um, but that's definitely something I've learned, and I encourage you to grow that skill as well. Communication is so important, and how you communicate something can be the difference in you getting your point across, or you getting something done, or not having that happen. So I definitely would encourage you to do that.
Yeah, and I would add that, that is essentially the cornerstone of software development and coding in
Hmm.
general, because that's essentially what you're doing. It's just a big exercise in communications. So, understanding, for example, that the computer it's not able to think on its own, at least yet, until y'all crack the code at Skynet on the artificial intelligence, but it must be told what to do. And the
Hmm.
coding is, the unique way in which you communicate with the computer for it to complete task. And it's a very elaborate um it is a very elaborate exercise of like how to make a sandwich
Hmm.
that everyone had to do, in elementary school or middle school. I don't know when they did it, but you had to be able to describe step by step
Hmm.
on how to make a sandwich. And so this ability to be able to communicate and rightly, because it's just like if you had to write instructions for someone who purchased an item that had to be assembled, and they had the instructions on the box. Your ability to be able to communicate, and so coding and math and statistics kind of forces you to be able to be precise in your wording, and to consider the other folks when you're, or a variety of people, I should say, when it regards, the uh the whatever the outcome or the objective is, saying as
Hmm.
far as that is concerned.
Yep.
And so I know you have to go soon, so I'm going to ask one more question. um Let me see. Did I lose it already? Yep, I did lose it. Let me go back up. Just one of you. I guess I can ask this. Just wondering if you guys are familiar with the work of physicist Sylvester Gates and his mathematics called Adinkra symbols. Just curious. I am, but I don't know.
I'm not familiar with those.
Yeah, he's a well-known theoretical physicist
Hmm.
who went to MIT, and he was the first PhD. It's a brother, and I'm trying to get him on the show. Is this a matter of uh, getting in contact with his peoples? But if I can get him on the show, we'll be able to ask him all about the Adinkras. But he's a mathematician, and of course, and a theoretical physicist. And so a lot of of what you speak of is, of course, very important to him.
Yeah.
And but yeah, but that's physics. So
Yep.
that's totally different, saying field. But I appreciate again the time that you have shared with us. From the comments, they really enjoyed you, and so hopefully we can get you back, on the program to discuss some other very important things. But if the people wanted to contact you, if there was a young sister who wanted to get involved in mathematics and statistics and wanted some insights into how that could be done, how would they be able to contact you? Do you have a social media presence or a website?
I do have a social. I am on Facebook and Twitter. I don't know if I can.
Well,
I
you
don't.
can
I guess
share
I'm
it
not
in
logged
the.
in. I can't type it in, but so I was going to type it in the chat.
Well, you can try to
But I'm
type
very
it
easy
in
to
the
find.
private chat.
If you just
Yeah.
Google my name, I'm the easiest, most
Okay.
Googleable person ever. If you just type in my first name,
Googleable.
all my stuff comes up. If you type in Sydeaka Twitter or Sydeaka Facebook or something like that, then on Google search. Actually, I have a website, Sydeaka.com, actually. So I'll get that. There's just
Yeah.
not a whole lot of Sydeakas around, I guess. So yeah, you can definitely do that. And then LinkedIn, Sydeaka Watson as well.
Hey, no problem. No problem. Well, thank you again for joining, and thank you all for listening and uh, being engaged and asking some very great questions. And so, as always, like this video, share this video, and of course, keep the conversation going. And so remember, on this coming Saturday, we're going to have one of the other members of the Black Science team, Brother Leonce Hall, also out of New Orleans. He's going to be on the show this Saturday. We haven't solidified the time. I think it'll probably be around the same time as now for Saturday. But I'll have a flyer and links for that soon. And then, of course, on the 29th, we have, and that's a Thursday, at 2 p.m., excuse me, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, Dr. Wade Nobles. And so for y'all want to have, or y'all have any questions, what I'm saying, for me, of course, these are my social media handles and of course my website. And we promote STEM science all day, every day, 365. So thank you, Dr. Watson, for your commentary and contributions. And thank you all again for listening. With that said, we are out, and y'all have a blessed week, and continue to wear your mask and sanitize your hands and keep 6 feet apart unless y'all live in the same house. Then y'all have an excuse.
Hey,
Anyway,
thank you
y'all
for
have a
having
blessed.
me. Thank you for having me, and I appreciated all the great questions. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to get through all of them, but yes, please feel free to reach out to me. Yeah, looking forward to checking out the next edition. I know Leonce's a great brother, so stay tuned for that, I guess. Good stuff.
Indeed. All right, I still had the thing up. Oh well. Holla at y'all later. Peace.